we're going over our fourth intro tutorial. We've done 3 the rest of the semester. If you've joined the club later than about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you probably want to go back and look at those. They're on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel as where this meeting will be posted as well. We're recording it. But we will cover a few things similar to it today so that you're not completely behind. So you're good. For our meetings, we always start with a Kahoot. If you're online, use the sign-in form, scan it. If you're in person, I think I've checked everybody in, so you don't need to sign in. So Luke's gonna take care of our Kahoot for this week. All right, last second for them. Kahoot code is there.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't know.
On the fly, yeah, I'm sure I can adjust.
Okay. I'll give you.
I had to look at that. I couldn't figure out how to make a question.
Yeah, exactly.
So by all means, yeah.
I either did and don't remember it. I remember just looking at it. I was like, I almost put that tweet in that the number 2 tweet.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
No, man, that was great.
Joe.
No.
Okay. Hey, let's not do that name. Let's not do that one today. Jags finally won. Is that someone in person?
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
They look so
Lawrence
happy
did-
on the field, man.
Trevor versus Mac. Boston College lost. Nice. Give me about 5 more seconds to log in. All right, let's roll.
All right. What was the final score of NC State's football victory over Boston College on Saturday?
This is the one game I was like, we're going to choke one of these games in the stretch. And it's going to be Boston College, but we did. So I'm happy about this
I
one.
put money on Boston College. I was so confident we were going to choke. So I'm glad to lose that.
Glad to
bet,
lose
though.
that money.
It was 33-7 on that beautiful safety at the end of the game. Which top 5 team did NC State women's soccer defeat on Saturday? Same day as the football game. North Carolina, Virginia, Louisville, or Syracuse? It was UNC. A big win for our women.
First time that they won against 2 top 5 opponents in the same season, as well as the first time they beat Duke and Carolina in the same season. So that's a huge win for the ladies. They're good, but very young. So keep on the lookout for them for the future.
The NC State swim team swept which SEC opponent in their first home duel of the season? Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss, or Georgia?
Passion.
Yeah,
Home of the worst fans in the nation, Tennessee.
Tennessee got in some hot water for football, but their swimming team just was not.
Was in some cold water.
Yeah, they were in some cold water because they were not doing
Yeah,
very well.
apparently they aren't good at golf either.
As of today, NC State women's volleyball has won how many consecutive games? 2, 3, 4, or 5?
4 in a row, sweep Virginia Tech, beat Wake Forest at home. And then this weekend they beat Syracuse either 3 or 4, and they beat Boston College on Sunday in 4 sets. They're on the rise. They got a good coach. They had a rough start of the conference schedule, just as tough scheduling. I mean, playing the number 4 team in the nation, Pitt, it's tough. But they're getting better, so love that.
Very taken first place. Who is NC State's all-time leader in receptions? This is for football, to be clear. Not like, I don't know what other sport with that. Rugby, maybe?
Yeah, we don't have that.
That's why I didn't specify. Emeka Emezi passed Jalen Samuels for the lead on this past Saturday. So that is the correct answer. Good job, guys. Y'all are doing very good on this one so far. Which of these MLB teams has been eliminated from the playoffs? The Boston Red Sox, the Atlanta Braves, the Houston Astros, or the Milwaukee Brewers?
Rip the Brew Crew.
Yeah. The Miami Heat have retired number 23 in honor of which player? Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, Ronnie Cycli, or Michael Jordan? It
I
is
honestly did not believe you when you put this question.
No,
Yes,
man.
it is Michael Jordan.
a beautiful trivia question because who the hell would think it'd be Michael Jordan? But yeah, never played for the Heat, obviously. But I think in the NBA, it's the only team that has a retired
Correct.
jersey for a player that did not play for them.
Maybe that would make sense.
That would make a lot of sense, yeah.
But
Which team won the 2021 WNBA championship just this past Saturday, I believe,
brought one
Sunday?
home to her city.
Yeah, Chicago Sky led by Candace Parker, just
She got
dominated.
benched 2 years ago. Got voted by her peers as most overrated player. Then goes to Chicago, wins one for her home city. Great story.
Which of these NFL games did not go to overtime on Sunday? A lot of overtimes, very eventful games. Some of these were fun to watch. Some of them were very painful to watch.
Some of them were early and painful to watch, including the Jaguars and Dolphins.
Jaguars Dolphins ended on a regulation game-winning kick from that number 15 guy, who I think they should have retired that number from Minshew, but I digress. Who won the first NHL game of the season? Started off on ESPN for the first time in like 20 years or something like that.
What was the other game? They someone over like last week.
Jets,
It wasn't a better game.
The four worst teams you could pick. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Penguins beat the Lightning in the first game of the season.
Hurricanes are 1-0 or 2-0?
2-0 right now, undefeated as of this moment. On pace to go 82-0, which would be a pretty impressive
Analytics,
season.
baby. 82-0.
Iowa's big loss to Purdue made them the first AP top 2 team to lose to an unranked team at home since which year? 2014, 2009, 2007, or
At
the year of
home.
my birth, 2001. Yes, to lose to
At
an
home,
unranked team
not on the road like Bama just lost to A&M.
at home.
It's like, wait a minute. No,
Are you a Bama fan?
I'm from Alabama. My whole family's from Alabama.
That would explain
Or went
the
to Bama,
answers.
so that makes sense.
I grew up Kentucky fan. Yeah, it was 2014. I don't know who did it, but ESPN Stats and Info tweeted it out. Oh, it was. You're right. I forgot
We
about
love
that.
seeing Ohio State lose.
I
Was that-
could
He
have
said it was
been.
Purdue, Ohio State.
Yeah, I believe him. Which of these teams will not be playing on the NBA's opening night tomorrow? The Milwaukee Bucks, the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Celtics, or the LA Lakers?
Celtics.
Not the Celtics. Yeah. Good job, guys. Once again, start PJ Walker with a commanding lead. Through 6 weeks, which player leads the NFL with a whopping 7 interceptions? Marshawn Lattimore, Jalen Ramsey, Byron Murphy Jr., or Trevon Diggs?
That's insane. That's literally more than one a game.
Yeah, 7 interceptions is insane. Isn't he? Is he a rookie or is he just like
I
young?
don't. Yeah.
Second year. Yeah. Wow. All the players with like the single digit numbers, I always think they're rookies now. But
Fair.
which country won the first ever World Cup? Men's World Cup.
World Cup.
Men's World Cup. Which was, I guess, just the first World Cup because it was the 30s or whatever.
Yeah. Wrong.
Uruguay. Had to look that one up myself, but good job to you guys who got that one. Question 15. Which NBA player has won the most MVP awards? Michael Jordan, Kareem, Bill Russell, or LeBron James? It is Kareem. He won 7 MVP awards. Highly underrated player all time, if you ask me. And the final question, which conference has the most football teams currently ranked in the AP top 10? SEC, the Big 12, the MAC, or the Big 10?
Give me some of that Thursday night action.
I wish it was the MAC, man.
Oh, it's Wednesday now?
Well, eventually it'll be Wednesday.
All right, it's the Big
The
Ten.
Big 10, I think it's like Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State or something like that.
Third place will be nice work. Second, Hayden. And in first. Ooh, same number of questions right. Start VJ Walker. Nice.
That's a sign they got to do it.
Yeah, that's got to do it now. Thanks, Luke. So let's get into presentation. So first slide, I normally put an NC State picture on there. Not this week. There's a ton of Wolfpack wins this weekend. Played Boston College in football. Huge win coming back from halftime. Sunday, NC State volleyball competed also against Boston College and won. Swims teams absolutely destroyed Tennessee, especially the men. I mean, they're probably on pace to win the ACC yet again, as well as some other stuff. Men's golf won their second tournament of the season. And then women's soccer, like we said, upset the Tar Heels. Announcements for this week. First one, Nessus is still going on until the end of this month. So feel free to use the link in the chat if you're watching on Zoom or if you're in person when you get these slides out to sign up for that and watch some of those. Recordings are being posted on YouTube as well. I don't have that link yet, but I will put that out eventually. Carnegie Mellon Sports Analytics Conference is November 6th and 7th. Price is normally around $20. I haven't checked if they posted the exact price yet. That's usually one of the best ones for students to go to. It's 2 full days. Speakers, poster presentations, same as UConn, but just the quality of work and the way people explain it is a lot nicer with Carnegie Mellon. Next one, Ohio State Sports Analytics Conference. This one is a free conference. It is, I believe, a Friday. Yes, like a Friday type deal, kind of all day. You can see it says 8 to 6 here on the slide. It's all over Zoom, so you might as well sign up and then show up to what you want to, rather than just whatever. You can stay the whole day if you want. It's up to you. Next one, T-shirts order is due today. If you have not filled out the Google form, see me right afterwards, and I'll sign you up for that. If you're not sure, go ahead and fill it out again, because I can always just delete you if you don't fill it out twice. Last announcement for the women's basketball, they're looking for people to help count with stats. So this would be going to the games, counting points, rebounds, assists. If you're interested, email Maddie Smith for more information. Her email address is down on the board. Any more questions before we get into our tutorial? Anybody? Zoom, you gotta have the chat pulled up if you want to ask something there. All right, cool. Let's go to our tutorial. So I need everybody to open up a new session of R, and we will get started. We're going to start from this screen. Don't open up a new R script. We're going to learn about something different. Who in here has heard of R Markdown? Yes. Anybody else? Yes, Connor has. All right. So R Markdown is really neat. It allows you to incorporate your code as well as like plain text and like put it all together in one file. So this is great if you're trying to explain your work to somebody, or if you're writing a document and you have a graph that you made in R, but you want the rest of it together. That's the type of stuff we want to do with this. So this is how we're going to do R Markdown. To create an R Markdown file, go up here to where it has the little sheet of paper with the plus sign. Click it and then select R Markdown. It should pop open a little screen like that. So we can call this, I'm going to call it intro 4 R Markdown. And then you can change your author name if you want. I'm keeping my name. We're going to output today as an HTML file. You can output the PDF. There you have to download something else, which I didn't feel like having all y'all download. HTML is also useful because you can just save it as a PDF later on. And there's also some more benefits using HTML that we'll talk about later today. So we'll click OK, and it makes our R Markdown file for us. So knit is what you do when you want to combine your plain text, like your words, with your code and your graphs. So to knit, you need to click the knit button. It's like this ball of yarn. You might not, you guys see this in person? There's like a, okay, cool. So I'm going to knit it real quick. I need to save the file. And it will output as an HTML file. And as you can see, you have your code and your output and some plots, stuff like that, right? All right, so we're going to kind of go through this piece by piece and what this R Markdown file does, some ways you can customize it. So that way you can kind of create your own projects and files. This is a nice way, like I said, to put your text, your explanations along with your plots or whatever kind of graphics you make. So I'm going to delete all this to leave just this part up here, as well as this first, what they call code chunk. So this top part right here that I have highlighted, it's about lines 1 through 6. It's called the YAML heading, YAML heading. So what it does is it sets up your stuff for the entire document. So as you can tell, your title, all right, we're going to call it intro for R Markdown. Author, same thing. Date, same thing. You can add a subtitle if you want. I'm going to put the R Markdown in the subtitle and get rid of it up here. You can do as you please. The last part of it is what is really cool. So the output, if we want to output it as an HTML document, we need to do output : HTML document. If you want to do a PDF, you can do PDF document, etc. The other thing we're going to do, we're going to space it down a row. And we're going to put a colon, or we're going to write, where is that? We're going to write code_download equals true. So let's knit this and see what this looks like for a second. Colon true. Let's try that. Sorry about that. So what that does is it puts this little button up here in the right corner. It says code. And you can download the R Markdown file that it was used to create the HTML file. That's something you can't do in a PDF, which is one of the reasons we wanted to make this HTML file. So that other people, they can say, oh, I like this code. Let me download this and use it on my own stuff. It's really, really neat. The next part that we're going to talk about is what is called the setup chunk. So code, when you're writing, there's two different things you can have in an R Markdown file. You can have plain text, and you can have code chunks. Code chunks are what you use to put code in. And then plain text is just your commentary and other writing. The first code chunk in your R Markdown file is called your setup chunk. So it'll have this knit_r : ops_chunk $set, and then some stuff inside the parentheses. We're going to talk about some of this stuff inside of the parentheses. So the echo equals true. What that does, I'm going to type this so you can see it. Echo equals true. I can spell true. What that allows people to see your code while you are coding and looking at your R Markdown file. So let's you see the code from the R Markdown file. Other options that we want to do is include equals true. That's very, very similar. Include equals true makes the code chunk included in output. This is something that we normally would put up here in this statement right here. We'll talk more about those as we go along. The next one that we want to do is warning equals false. So sometimes if you're running code and you come up on something, it's going to pop up a warning. So we don't want those outputted in our R Markdown file. How terrible would it be if you're reading your paper and then you just see like 30 pages of just this error? That'd be really annoying. That's why we use the warning equals false. And similar to that, message equals false is for when you have a message in your code. So an example of this would be if we did library tidyverse. See how when we run this, we get a message right here. We do not want that to show up in our code, especially if we're coding for someone else. So when we do message equals false, it prevents that from showing up. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. The next thing that we want to talk about is our formatting. Well, let's just say setup chunk. Formatting in R Markdown. All right, so what is special about some of these lines of code in here? I'm going to knit it in a second. So take a good look at the code. And then I'll knit it so we can look at it. Yeah. So what do you see that kind of sticks out in terms of patterns and in the writing and the code chunks and such? Yeah, the hashtag is a lot bigger. So if we want to set up different headings, we can do that with our hashtags. So if I want to say, this is called a first level header. It's when you use one hashtag. We want to do a second level header. And we'll do a third one just for good sake. So let's look at those for a second. So you may be able to tell, you may not be able to tell. The less number of hashtags we have, the bigger the header is. So the more important it is. So look at our first level header, just has one hashtag. And it's the biggest header. Whereas compared to the third level header, has 3 hashtags and it's kind of our smallest header or subheader. Does that make sense, that idea? Cool. There's a couple other customizations that we can do. So for example, what if we wanted to make stuff bold? We can do that as well. This is an example of bold text. So to do that, we put 2 of the little asterisks before and after the word that we want to do. See how it turned green on mine? I might turn a different color on yours. This is very similar. If you've used LaTeX before, this is very similar syntax to that. If we want to do italicize, so italics is with 1 star. Another way you can do it, you can highlight the word and then click, you can highlight the word and then put it, just press the star 1 time and it does that for you. So let's look at that for a second. So this is an example of bold text because we put the 2 stars around the word bold. And then italics is with 1 star, wrapped in italics. Any questions so far or any comments? You may be wondering how to underline. That's really, really tricky. There's no really good way to do that in R. I've tried to look for it a couple different times and just can't find anything. The next thing we want to talk about is spacing in R Markdown. So let's look at the output that we have so far. So up here, we have plain text, code chunks, echo equals true, our different headers. It's kind of irrelevant. Here we have, this is an example of bold text, enter, italics is the one with 1 star. However, there's not, it doesn't go on the different line here. It's still in that one like paragraph. So someone that does have experience with R Markdown, do you know how to make it separate on the 2 lines? Connor, do you have any idea? David? Nope. Okay. So there's 2 different ways that you can do this. The first way you can do this is the way I prefer to do it. I prefer to put a blank line, just literally a blank line in between. Yeah, in between. So if we put that blank line there, that's what allows us to break it up onto 2 lines. See how it kind of breaks up there? The other way to do this is you can do others prefer to. So our last word is 2. You see I have 2 dots right there. Let's see if I can, no, I can't zoom in. You see how there's 2 dots after mine? It means I put 2 spaces there. That's kind of an option we can cut on. If you don't have that cut on, you can ask me afterwards how to cut that on. It's really useful. And so you put the 2 spaces, and you can put your next line to put 2 spaces at the end of. And that does a very similar thing. The spacing is a little bit closer, but it still separates on the 2 lines. And notice how there's not a blank row in between these where it says others prefer to put 2 spaces at the end of the previous line. Is that good? Any questions, any comments? Feel free, if you have an idea, hey, I want to learn how to do this, feel free to shout it out and I'll help you out there. The next thing we want to do is the slash character and writing equations. Let's see if that prints like I want it to. Perfect. All right. Oh, I shouldn't have closed that. The slash character, that's your indicator that you want to do something different, if that makes sense. So in LaTeX, it's commonly used in math. Let me write it on this board right here. LaTeX. That character is used to represent like mathematical symbols and stuff. So we'll talk about that really quick. To do equations, first step, put stuff in dollar signs. So for example, we have a dollar sign. See how that turned that line a different color? And the dollar signs turn a different color. That's so that we can type our like mathematical equations. So if you've taken Stat 430 here at NCSU or some kind of regression class, you may recognize this plus beta 1 x 1 plus. If you haven't seen this, don't freak out. It's not as bad as it looks. That is an example of LaTeX equation. What this does is allows you to write mathematical symbols in your R Markdown file. So as you can tell, it converts this slash beta to the beta symbol, the little fancy B. The underscore means that you're writing as a subscript. And I think that's it. That's all the LaTeX I use in this code. You don't have to memorize that. We're not really going to use that in this club. However, we are going to use one LaTeX command that's pretty useful. It's called /newpage. So let's write random text here. And what that does is it lets you break off a new page. But we're in an HTML document, so it doesn't really look like anything. If we open it up to our browser and then act like we're going to print it, that's when it separates off into our new page. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you're looking at an HTML document, it looks like when you're doing a new page, you're not doing anything. However, when you actually print it, or if you're using a PDF document, it does separate out to that next page. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. All right, finally, the best part about R Markdown. So I'll do another new page so you can actually see it better. Writing code. Yep. So here's a better example of our new page stuff. See how we have random text? We put a new page statement here and here, so it jumps all the way down to that new page. It's a better visual example of seeing that because you may just think it might roll over, but it doesn't, promise. So writing code, like I said, is written in code chunks. To start with your code chunk, if you look on your computer, there's a button right above the tab button. It has the little tilde sign like you see in Spanish. but it also has this little like tick mark. To do your R Markdown code chunks, you press that button 3 times. You do the curly bracket. You do R, and then you put a space, and then code chunk name. We're going to call it code chunk 1. And then to close off your code chunk, you do 3 more little tick marks. So let me explain this a little bit more. So the R represents that we're programming in R. You can also use R Markdown for Python and some other languages. So it lets R Markdown, all right, we need to be focusing about R. Code chunk names can be whatever you want. Typical code chunk names can be like plotting, analysis, code chunk 1. When I do my homework, I do question 1A, question 1B, etc. Go along those lines. There's also other stuff. So all this we included up here can also be included in this first statement of your code chunk. You see include equals false here. Let's write a comment in this code. So there's no other arguments for this code chunk right here. And as you can see, it shows that whole code chunk right there, right? However, if we look, the setup chunk is not there at all. It's because we included include equals false in this line here. So if the first line of the code chunk has something in it, it goes by those rules. Otherwise, it goes by this rules that we set up in the setup chunk. So it's like if you're driving on the highway, you just assume the speed limit's like 65 or 70, unless you see a sign that says otherwise, right? So this is your local speed limit. All right, include equals false. All right, we're not going to show it. Otherwise, we're going to follow these rules that we set up here. Does that idea of the kind of the global versus the local setup rules make sense to everyone? Any questions? Feel free to interrupt and just ask if you have questions, because I'd rather answer than no.
I'm just gonna say one other. Like anyway, we gotta make sure that code chunks not the same thing.
Yep, I was about to get that. Good segue. All right. So with the code chunk names, there are 2 pretty important rules. First, like David said, you can't have the code chunks with the same name. So let's see what happens if we try that. So we run it, and R Markdown has a look, and you get this big, mean, nasty letter. All right, so it has to have different names. Second off, you can put spaces in them, but it's like bad. Don't do that. So notice how I put code chunk 1 all kind of jammed together. You can do that with any kind of sentence. So if I want to say NC State wins, that's a proper code chunk name. If I wanted to put NC State wins, it'll run, but it doesn't look as nice and it's not preferred. So they prefer that you use camel case, which is like capitalizing the first letter. So code chunk 1, or you can use snake case, which has like the little underscores, or some other version of it. I typically just have mine all together or with camel case. Camel case because it has the capital letters, kind of like a camel has humps. Snake case because it has the underscores like a snake. So let's look at that. As you can see, it shows up our comments. So let's write some code. So let's actually call this first code chunk libraries. And we'll call this one code because we're actually like really do code with that. So libraries needed for this R Markdown. I typically like to organize my code where all my libraries are together. So whether I have a file, like we have been working in a script, or if we're doing an R Markdown document, I like having all my libraries together just so I know, all right, I need all these. So we're going to use the layman data set. So you need to type that, library layman, as well as tidyverse. There are some new people here. So people that have been here, before you do the library, what command do you need to run in your console? Or what command do you need to run to download a package? Anybody? What's up? No, that's to run it. What do you have to do before you library? Install, yep, install.packages. So this specifically for the two new people that are here. Install.packages, quote, layman, install.packages. You only need to install a package once. So it's like going to a bookstore and buying the book from the bookstore. Once you buy it, you bought it, and it's free. It doesn't take up much space on your computer. So if you're worried, oh, I'm downloading too many packages, no, you're not. Just keep on downloading. You're fine. So I'm not going to run these because I already have these packages installed. And of course, once you have those installed, you need to do Control-Enter to run those. All right. So let's start with our layman data set. We're going to use the people data set. I don't think we've used that one yet. What's up?
I had this just happen. When I ran it, it shot back up to that one statement with the K and R pop chunks.
That's what happened to me too.
And
All right.
it's like the red side.
Try to highlight that row that you're in and then do Control-Enter.
Didn't do anything that time, but it's still there.
All right, let me come visit real quick. Yeah, when you're running code inside of a code chunk, you need to make sure your mouse is like on the line you want to run. So some people were having issues, they were putting it up here. If you run that, you'll get some kind of error. Usually it says zero length variable name. You want to actually be on the line that you're trying to run. So that makes sense to everybody. Anybody else getting that error? Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna filter. We're gonna get pictures from North Carolina, fittingly. So let's start. What function do we use? We've kind of went over this. What function do we use to get certain rows based on a condition? Anybody? Filter, yep, filter. The variable is birth state equals NC. So what else do we need to do to have this saved to a variable? Somebody. To have this data set saved to a variable instead of it just printing out, how do we get it to save in our environment? Yeah, you gotta do the arrow. Yep, and we'll call it layman P for people. So this gives us all the people from North Carolina. We can do another filter statement. Where, does that have position? No, it doesn't have position. Oh, well, we'll just say people from North Carolina. And we're going to select a few useful variables we can use to select certain columns. What function do we use? Select. So we're going to select the name given, the debut, as well as the player ID variables. So that's in our layman P. We have that saved to our environment at this point. So if we want to look at that, we can use print head layman P. I think I've maybe mentioned head before. What that does is it grabs the first few rows of the data set so that you're not printing out all 423 lines of it. We run it, it prints it out here, or we can knit it to our HTML document. and it prints out here. So it has where we put our code chunk for our libraries, as well as all of our code that we used to get this right here. Okay. So there's one more package that we want to use because that looks kind of ugly. You can see there's a lot nicer ways to get this table to look in R. See how it just kind of has all those hashtags off to the side, and then everything kind of looks cattywampus. The last package that I want to introduce for our tutorials is the GT package. I know I've used it. I think you've used it. You? No. Tyson? No. All right. Cool. Good, because GT tables are fun. So we're gonna make a new code chunk called GT. So we have to put the R because we're programming in R and GT. So if you have not installed the GT package, do that. If that did not work, let me know. Installed out packages, parentheses, quote, lowercase GT. Let me know when y'all get that. Good. Okay. So let's start. Let's say we want to print out this exact same thing, but in a nicer format. We can start with layman P. We can do the head function, which takes like the first 5 or 6 rows. And then we can pipe it to the GT function. So GT, parentheses, parentheses. That's it. And let's knit it. Oh, I don't need to install that package. Yeah. So when R Markdown is trying to knit your document, what it does is it goes through all your code. It ignores anything that you've typed into the console. It only goes off what your code is. So for example, in mine, it says you couldn't find the GT function. Well, that's because it's in that package. And I didn't tell that we needed the package. I just typed it here in the console. Does that idea make sense? It's not looking in the right place, so it doesn't know it needs that actual function. That's why you have to put library, whatever packages you need in your actual code rather than just typing it down here in the console. So let's try one more time to knit it. Go. So we scroll to the bottom. It makes that table look a lot nicer. And of course, there's more customizations we can do from here. I have a little bit of time. I could teach that if you wanted to. What's up, Zach?
When let me install the package, like every time I try to run it.
Any more questions? Anyone else having issues? Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah, so the GT package is really, really cool. I encourage you to look into it on your own time. I'll show some stuff that I've done with GT. For example, I made some graphs during the Summer Olympics, such as this one. Yep. So this is an example of a package I made with GT. It looks really, really nice and professional and stuff. It has different athletes and how well they did in a certain Olympic games. For example, Michael Phelps is a swimmer. You can have as a little swimmer icon from the United States. In Beijing, he won 8 golds, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Different people, Caleb Dressel and Emma McKeon from this past summer. This was like right as the swimming events were finishing. So they both had fantastic summers as well. So you can see, you can still put your credit down here, data from wherever, etc. So that's just some examples of stuff you can do with a GT package. If you want to learn more, look up Thomas Mock's GT, a grammar of tables blog post. He does a lot of good stuff. He made something like really recently. It's like a package that you can add on to the GT that adds different stuff. Like if you want to put a rating out of 5 stars, there's different stuff you can do that. So there's a lot more you can learn with R Markdown. These are just general things. Very vague. Any questions or comments on something you'd like to see? If I know, I'll do it on the fly, or I'll try to do it on the fly. What's up?
How do you do the thing where it shows like what you typed, like the enter in the spaces?
Oh, yeah. So how do I do the different stuff? So you can click up here where it says tools, global options. Oh boy. Zoom. I can't see because Zoom. I didn't know. You guys know you can move that. I did not know that. Anyways, sorry, it's a little barred where like move on stuff. Code. And then it says one of these writing display. Sorry. It says show white space characters. So your white space characters, there's there's 2 ones that you really need to know if you're showing your white space characters. Your first one's just a dot that represents the space. The next one's this little character right here. It means enter that you went on to the next line. So if we look here, if you look very careful, there's something a little faded out. And then you click apply. And then okay. You see the little, see where my cursor is blinking? That little character next to it is this one right here. That means I hit enter there in order to get to the next line. Whereas if we look in between, let's say here, there's that little dot, it's kind of fading in the background. That represents your space. It doesn't show up in your actual code, or it doesn't show up in your actual printout for your R Markdown or any of your R scripts and stuff. It is just kind of nice to know, all right, where am I missing my spaces? See, there's no little dots in between introduction and to, just a space. The other global option that I prefer, and I think you guys might enjoy, is tools, global options, code, display, rainbow parentheses. What that does is it makes it easier to line up where stuff is paired, because once you get lost in parentheses, it's really, really tough. So for example, here, you can look where I have it nested head and then layman P. The 2 orange parentheses match up with one another, and so did the 2 red parentheses. Good question. Any more? Otherwise, that's pretty much the end of our tutorial. So if you feel free to ask, if you don't have anything else to ask, that should be it. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, here's the QR code. If you're in person, I think everybody signed in. Yeah, that's it. What's up, Zach?
I restarted and it still won't let me run it.
Okay, I'll fix you in a bit. Anybody else? All right, cool. See you guys next week.